What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. We're still doing 3 videos a week right now, so we don't want you to miss out on any of those future videos. So make sure you're subscribed, got the notifications on, and all that good stuff. If you guys are looking for more content, we have a members only page as well, so you can check that out if you're interested for some more content, some behind the scenes type stuff, and some live streams. So if you're looking to get more connected with us, check out the members only page as well. All right, well, it's officially the spring time of year, definitely here in Tennessee. Maybe not quite up north just yet for all my northern folks, but here in Tennessee, it is spring, it's warm, you know, the trees have pollen on them, the bass are pushing shallow, and I'm gonna give you guys a tip. This is the easiest way to find bass in the spring. You know, it really, when you think about it, it's really quite simple, but we're gonna dive in, give you a quick tip on the easiest way to find some bass here in the spring. All right, guys, so basically after winter, you know, the bass are going to start feeding pretty heavily, and they really are feeding with one thing on their mind. You know, the whole thing coming out of winter, all the bass are thinking about is spawning. Everything they do is related to making babies. That's all they got on their mind heading into the spring as the days start getting longer. And, you know, obviously they have to spawn in shallower water than they can live the rest of the year. So, you know, when the bass are spawning, they're going to be in, you know, shallower areas, whether it's flats or the back of pockets, things like that. Now, you know, this little tip helps you if, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a new lake or a lake you're familiar with. You know, you can kind of use this tip and system and kind of work backwards and find exactly where the fish are in your fishery. So we're going to start with the easy one, the low-hanging fruit. If you have a lake that you know where the bass spawn at, you know, you've fished this lake for years and years, and you know you've caught bass on the bed, or you know the areas that those bass spawn. Whenever you get out on the water in the spring, start in those areas and kind of work your way out deeper, so you can kind of see where they are in that progression. You know those bass are going to be funneling into those areas at some point. So basically you're looking for where they are in that transition. So if you know where they spawn, you can start there and kind of work your way out until you find them. So, you know, a big example, this is a very broad example, but you'll kind of get the point, is if you look at Lake Guntersville. So say Browns Creek, for instance, it is a huge creek, but there is a ton of bass that spawn back in Browns Creek. So if you go there sometime in the spring, you know that you can find some bass somewhere in that creek. You could start at the bridge and see if they're just working their way in through the bridge. You could start behind the bridge. You could start out in front of the bridge. But somewhere in that zone, you're going to be able to find those fish. And really, you can apply that theory on any body of water across the country, and even on a much smaller scale. I mean, it could be a tiny little pocket that you know the bass spawn in. They're going to be fairly close. You know, they may be out on the flat kind of leading into it like we have right here. They could be on, you know, the secondary rock point that kind of at the mouth of the pocket. They could be right in the middle of the drain chasing bait fish, but those bass are going to be somewhere close to that area they're spawning in. So basically, I like to find those areas where they're spawning. So that's why it's really important to spend a lot of time on the water in the spring, just to see those areas where the bass use in the spring. That way the next year, when you get back out on the water, you can really focus on those zones and fine tune kind of their migration all the way through. Now, like I said, that's the easy route because you're kind of familiar with that lake. So if you're going to a brand new lake where you're unfamiliar where they spawn, typically what I like to do is find a larger area that's fairly flat. You know, the bass need shallower water to spawn. So I'm going to look for basically north facing pockets that are fairly flat bottom in them, and typically there's going to be some bass that spawn in those areas, and I'm going to kind of work my way backwards to figure out where they are. You know, use that same system. But, you know, finding the areas that they spawn, that can be a little tricky, especially when they're not up there. So, you know, you're looking for areas that have potential, maybe some grass in the back of them, or, you know, some bushes. You know, you're looking for the cover that the fish may be using to spawn, and then you're going to work your way backwards and find out where they're currently at if they're not up there. You know, here in Tennessee, it's kind of in that in-between phase right now. You know, there's some fish that are spawning, but I feel like the bulk of them haven't quite moved up yet. So I'm kind of going through that process right now today on the water, trying to find those fish exactly where they are in that migration. So just a little tip for you guys. Hopefully you guys can use this spring to put some more fish in the boat. You know, it's just a quick, simple tip if you really think about it, but it really gets overlooked, and a lot of people just kind of fish what's in front of them without really thinking about what they're doing. So that's one thing that I always like to do. Hopefully you guys can use it to put some more bass in the boat this spring. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Leave me those likes, comments, good stuff down below. Don't forget, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys next time.